Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. In the past 12 harrowing hours, Kyiv, Odesa, and a number of other Ukrainian cities have endured one of the most intense aerial bombardments since the beginning of the year. This is widely seen as the opening move of Russia's autumn-winter campaign, a campaign that could determine the course of the war in the coming months. But that is not the whole story. Behind the fiery strikes lie Moscow's deeper strategic calculations, Washington's unpredictable responses, and a troubling reality now emerging in China, where its vast industrial ambitions appear increasingly unstable. 12 hours of inferno over Ukraine's skies on the night of the 27th into the early hours of the 28th, Russia unleashed more than 600 Shahed drones, along with at least 50 Kaliber and Kinzhal cruise missiles. This was not a routine airstrike, but rather a preemptive blow signaling the start of a new campaign season. The primary targets were energy infrastructure, airfields, ammunition depots, and even transport convoys. In Kyiv, large districts were plunged into darkness. In Odesa, fuel storage facilities burned for hours. Despite extensive Western aid, Ukraine's air defense network was overwhelmed by the scale of the assault, which lasted an unbroken 12 hours. Analysts note that Russia is reviving its winter without power strategy, which had left Ukraine reeling last year. The aim is not only to degrade military capabilities, but also to exhaust civilian morale, forcing Kyiv to weigh the prospect of concessions. Pokropilievka, the new death pit on the battlefield. While Kyiv's skies burned, on the ground the focus of the war shifted to Pokropilievka, a small town with outsized strategic importance. Experts describe it as a new death pit, much like Bakhmut once symbolized the grinding attrition of earlier battles. Pokropilievka sits astride the key supply routes linking Dnipro and Poltava to Ukraine's eastern front. At present, Russian forces have nearly encircled the town, while Ukraine is forced to commit its remaining elite units in a desperate defense. Should Pokropilievka fall, Russia would gain a direct gateway towards central Ukraine, placing the industrial hub of Dnipro under immediate threat, a potential turning point that could reshape the entire course of the conflict. Attrition tactics and Russia's slow but steady advances. Notably, Russia no longer employs the deep thrust, rapid strike approach seen in early 2022. Instead, it is pursuing a strategy of continuous attrition, advancing by a kilometer in Zaporizhzhia, tightening the encirclement around Avdiivka, intensifying small-scale assaults in the south. The frontline map shifts only marginally day to day, but cumulatively, Ukraine is losing the initiative. This is a boa constrictor strategy, slow, methodical, and designed to deny the adversary opportunities to counterattack. In his latest address, President Putin emphasized that Russia will fight until it achieves the goal of demilitarizing Ukraine and securing its so-called historic lands. This signals that Moscow will not accept any temporary settlement. Russia is prepared to pay the long-term price in pursuit of a decisive victory. It is a direct warning to both Kyiv and the West that this war is nowhere near its conclusion. Across the Atlantic, U.S. presidential candidate Donald Trump continues to surprise with contradictory statements. At times, he asserts that Ukraine can reclaim all of its territory, yet only days later he insists that America should not become bogged down in this war. In reality, the strategy is clear. Trump seeks to appease domestic hawks with rhetoric while leaving the door open to dialogue with Moscow through his actions. As a result, Europe finds itself in a dilemma, while Kyiv grows increasingly uncertain about the prospect of long-term support from Washington. Tomahawk, more political theater than military game changer. Recently, the Pentagon announced the possibility of supplying Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. However, experts suggest this is more likely a political gesture than a practical military measure. First, U.S. stockpiles have been severely depleted after nearly 2 years of aid to Kyiv. Second, the Tomahawk was designed for the U.S. Navy, making integration with Ukraine's infrastructure far from straightforward. And most importantly, Washington's strategic priorities have shifted, with China now at the forefront of American defense planning. Leaving the battlefield in Ukraine, we turn to Beijing, where a major shock is shaking the foundations of China's industrial pride. Aviation sector, the C919 aircraft, a flagship symbol of Made in China, has been exposed for its reliance on foreign technology, with 80% of its components imported from the United States and Europe. Although China once projected deliveries in the hundreds, only a handful have actually been produced. As a result, Chinese airlines have been forced to order nearly 1,000 aircraft from Boeing and Airbus, a stark setback that shatters the dream of aviation self-sufficiency. Ladies and gentlemen, the current global picture forms a complex triangle. Russia is steadily tightening its encirclement, raising the risk that Ukraine could lose additional key cities. The United States, under Donald Trump, is sending ambiguous signals, threatening Moscow on one hand, while signaling a withdrawal to focus on China on the other. Meanwhile, China faces mounting industrial crises, exposing its deep reliance on Western technology. Together, these three pieces reveal a world entering a turbulent phase where every move could reshape the international order. Thank you for watching. If you found this analysis insightful, please don't forget to like and share to support the channel. See you again in our next analysis video.